Kia ora. Now my welcome to the sixth episode of the App Smashing series. This one is going to be virtual architecture. So we're going to be looking at virtual tools for 3D design. There are free online tools. So we'll just get straight into it. We're going to start with a karakia. Hopefully you're all entering into the webinar and sorting out your sound. Jess should be in the background, putting the link to the slides in the chat if you need it. So follow along with that if you like. My name's Donald, if you haven't met me before. So this is part of a series that is all about finding digital tools and smashing them together and seeing what you can create with multiple digital tools. So we're going to start with an opening karakia. This came from the Kia Takatu Matahiko Digital Readiness Program that Te Papa were part of, and it's just an appropriate karakia for this kind of setting. So karakia timatanga. Tēnei te Māori ka piki aki ki te rangi e tū nei, he rangi atua, he rangi tipua, he rangi tāwhito. Kia whiti ko te mātaranga, kia tau ko te maramatanga. Whaia kia tata, puretia kia mau, haumie, huie, tae kie. Ko wai mātou, who am I? Who are we? Why are we here? What are we doing? So for those who don't know me, my name is Donald James. I am one of the learning specialists here at Te Papa Tongarewa, the National Museum of New Zealand. And in my role as part of the learning team, I develop and deliver learning programs which support learners to find their own connections to the collections and exhibitions that we have here at the museum. So along with those programs, we also often incorporate some amount of creative response to the collections and exhibitions, which helps learners find their own connection and make it meaningful to them. And a lot of the tools that we like to use are digital tools. It makes creation fun and interesting and new. And I am here to try and share some of these digital tools with you because I think they're really fun. We've had an amazing opportunity in the learning team to do a lot of research and development around digital tools that we like. And I want to make those open and freely available with people. So I've been here at the museum for about 5.5 years. I come from a background in lots of informal education settings, science festivals, things like that. And so I've had a lot of opportunity to try different types of digital creative tools. And that is what this webinar series is about. All of these short webinars, these 30-minute webinars in this series, they're just the first look at some tools, and we're offering you some challenges to go and see what you can make happen with these tools. So they're not in-depth looks, and we have other webinars as well in other series, which gives you a bit more of a kind of blow-by-blow how the tools work. So this series is more about why you might use things together, what you might learn by smashing apps together. There are other series for an in-depth how does the app work. Great, so today's challenge, Wero Rima, is to explore TinkerCAD and SculptGL and how might those combine with each other. So TinkerCAD is a free online 3D design tool. It has a very intuitive interface, which has been designed specifically for kids, and it's been around for quite a long time. So there's thousands of public designs, which you can download and remix, which is a great starting point to learn how the tool works. You can also visualize the designs that you come up with as Lego or Minecraft creations, which is great for lots of different learners who might be familiar with Lego and Minecraft as 3D creation tools. TinkerCAD also allows you to work collaboratively. So through accounts, you can have students working on things by distance, but also within the museum, we nearly always get students to sit side by side and work on a TinkerCAD design together, because that incorporates a lot of those 21st century core skills of communication and critical thinking and collaboration and creativity. So if it is a new tool for your learners as well, we highly recommend that you get multiple students sitting at the same device and working together, because how they solve the problem of what to design is as important as what they design. TinkerCAD also gives you the opportunity to annotate designs, which is really valuable, because you won't necessarily be able to incorporate every detail that you would want in a design, and being able to write added notes to justify design decisions and to explore what it is that you are creating is really useful. SculptGL, on the other hand, we can contrast that because the style of creation that it encourages. TinkerCAD, if you look at the example that's there, it's very blocky. It works from a basis of basic shapes that you build together, kind of like playing with wooden blocks. SculptGL, on the other hand, is a very tactile tool. So it's kind of virtual clay modeling. So you have to imagine that you're picking up a lump of plasticine or Play-Doh or clay or something like that, and that you are manipulating it with your hands or with fine tools to be able to change the form of it. It's another free online website. So that makes it really easy to access through any device. And it has a fairly tactile, touchscreen friendly interface too. However, we find it definitely works better with a mouse, and it's a good opportunity to teach kids how to use a mouse effectively. We like it because you can model things, and you can also paint your designs. Because of the tools that are available as part of it, it allows us in the museum to discuss and demonstrate Hokkaido patterns and forms, which is really valuable for us. Right, so Kadafua, let's give it a go. Let's have a look at these two tools and how we might, what happens when we try and combine these two tools together. So if I open up another tab, I'm going to start by showing you SculptGL because it's a less common tool. TinkerCAD has been around for a long time, and so lots of people are already aware of its existence. So this is what SculptGL looks like when you first open it, and it gives you this kind of block of clay, as you were. And on the right-hand side here, the most important thing that I want to draw your attention to is this tools option, because this is where you get to really play with the options. So we have brush, inflate, twist, smooth, flatten, pinch, crease, drag, paint, move, masking, local scale, transform. So we have all of these different tools here, and I highly recommend you just open up SculptGL for yourself and you give it a go. Play with all of these different tools, see what they do for yourself, because they're all really fun. And the first thing I always try and show people is the paint tool. So all of the blocks of clay, they start off with this kind of pale flesh kind of color, which gets a little bit weird quite quickly when we start manipulating it. So I'm just going to change the color of it to this green color, and it kind of gives you a preview as you're choosing your color on the design. And then if I want the whole thing to be that color, I can click paint all. That's kind of nice. And then I can choose a different color, maybe this kind of bluey purple, and I can actually draw on it. And so you can see it, there's a symmetry effect on right now. So as I paint on one side, then it draws on the other. And very quickly you can make interesting faces, which is pretty fun. So I know I'm doing some kind of like weird monstrous face thing. And so you can paint on a surface, then you can also do things like brush. So this this kind of adds material to the outside of your form. And so I can, maybe I want to give my strange creature weird antennae. Like this. There we go. Twist is really fun. I really like the effect of twist. So I'm just zooming in on it. There we go. So yeah, you can create things pretty rapidly, which is nice. You don't have to start with this sphere shape. And what I might just do is, if I use the transform tool, you can see I can make things bigger or smaller. And you can actually shift things around. So I might shift it up a little bit. And in this scene option, I can add a cylinder. So there we go. Now I have a form with a head on it. It's great. I'm going to, once again, I'm going to paint it this a kind of green color. That looks good. Nice. And maybe I will, every tool has this radius option. So I'm actually going to decrease that a wee bit. And there we go. Got little arms. And maybe I will give it some little feet. There we go. Some kind of weird kind of green blue panda creature. I don't know. I'm just making things up. Just making things up. So I'm making a creature, and there we go. So you can make monsters and creatures pretty quickly and easily. It's a pretty fun challenge to start with. Once you've created a thing, the thing with SculptGL is that you can't save it into this window anywhere. If you want to keep the creation, you must export it. If I close the browser, if I delete that tab, it's just gone forever. So I'm going to export it, and I'm going to export it as a .obj, and this will allow me to upload it into the other app we're going to use today, which is TinkerCAD. So I'm going to save it as a .obj. And I'm going to open a new tab. Oh, I'm going to open a brand new tab. And I'm going to go to TinkerCAD. Here we go. And I'm going to create a new design. So you'll see I have a whole lot of different TinkerCAD designs here in my library. I'm going to create a new one. And if I go to import, this will allow me to add creations that I've created from other places into TinkerCAD. That's fine. Might make it a little bit smaller. I'm going to bring it in as a miniature version of itself. So it'll take its time and appear. One of the issues with SculptGL is that the beautiful painting and color that you do, you don't get that when you export it as a .obj from SculptGL. There are places that you can send it that it will keep that textural information. And you should check out next week's webinar on Sketchfab if you want to see what to do with a beautiful painted model. Sketchfab is a really useful hosting platform. We've done other webinars that have talked about Sketchfab in the past as well. But for now, we're just bringing the form of our model from SculptGL into TinkerCAD. And TinkerCAD, because it is based on these geometric shapes, these basic geometric shapes on the side here. It's used to working with very small numbers of shapes and polygons. So the forms that come from SculptGL, in order for them to work in SculptGL, they must have many, many, many different polygons, many sides to the shape for SculptGL to work with it. So it's going to take a little bit of time to import it into TinkerCAD. But in TinkerCAD, we could create a little, maybe we could create a little forest while we're waiting, a place for our creature to live. So you can drag and drop shapes onto TinkerCAD, and let's make some trees. I'm going to zoom in on this, lift this tree shape up. Oh, there's my strange creature. It seems that only the head appeared, which is interesting. So things like this happen all the time. It's digital technology. That's just a fault that's happened as it goes. And I could spend the time looking at SculptGL and seeing what was missed in that process. But anyway, we have a head of our creature, and in TinkerCAD, I can change the color of it again. But TinkerCAD has the limitation that a single shape can only be a single color. That's one of the good things about SculptGL. You can paint the surface. And so limitations is one of the things we want to figure out by using these two tools. So I can add the shape, I can duplicate it, add another shape, duplicate it. There we go. We've got a nice little tree and a creature that lives here. I'm going to give it a nice green body. This is going to be a green bear living in a green forest. And so I can click and add shapes to it. So the way that you create in these two different tools is quite different. There's a lot of dragging and dropping and manipulating whole shapes in TinkerCAD, whereas SculptGL, it's more about manipulating those shapes on the surface. I can go, but that's how you would pull an object from one tool to another using these export import tools. And that's really valuable for teaching kids about digital files and the purpose of them and why you save things in different ways. You need to understand how different programs read different file types. So I can show you something that I made another time with the combination of SculptGL and TinkerCAD. So zoom out. Here we go. So there we go. So this is another creation. All of these PO around the outside, these were created in SculptGL, but I only created one of each. And then inside TinkerCAD, I copied and duplicated and shifted things around. I also created this kind of fire form in SculptGL. You also have the ability to make transparent colors in TinkerCAD, which is pretty fun. And so you can add these different elements together and you can arrange them in a whole scene as you like. And then from here, from TinkerCAD, I would be able to share that as well with others. So inside TinkerCAD here, we have the ability to add our notes like this. So I might add a note to here and say fire. And I might add a note to this, call this a PO. And so you can see the different forms that you can create using the different tools. And if I shared this publicly on TinkerCAD, then other people would be able to copy and tinker it and modify it for themselves as well. They could take an element of this and they could use it in their own creation if they like. So that's what you can create with the two of them. These forms, this fire form, these PO, you can't create on their own in TinkerCAD. It's just the tool doesn't work this way. But by combining them together, it gives you a lot more opportunities. Great. So let's jump back to the slides. So connection to the curriculum. Why would you use these tools in connection to the curriculum? So both TinkerCAD and SculptGL, they tick off progress outcomes, especially in the triple DO progress outcomes. Computational thinking, if you are for as far as like really basic processes around creating in a tool, exporting, importing into another tool, then you have that ability to kind of set out that as a process and understand how that process works. Debugging the problem, like when we exported from SculptGL, we only ended up with the head part. So that's a problem. We need to debug that. We need to look for solutions. Being able to do that process, that would be able to tick off debugging issues in the computational thinking progress outcomes. But using these two tools, they're both really creative tools. And so that also connects to art and design. It also connects to numeracy. There's lots of measurement available within TinkerCAD, and you can talk about scaling when you're importing shapes from one tool into another. And what does that mean? So that can be really valuable. You could also create a really irregular form in SculptGL, and then you could figure out how many of those irregular forms fit into a specific volume in TinkerCAD. So you can do those things virtually. You can do those things digitally, which is really fun in TinkerCAD and SculptGL. Both these tools, they also invite really different styles of 3D creation to suit different learners, as we have found in the Learning Lab here at Te Papa. So some learners, they really need the specificity of TinkerCAD to be able to lay it out on a grid on that kind of hatched work plane surface. And other students, they want to be able to have the opportunity to pool and paint and smush it around and create very openly, as SculptGL gives you the opportunity to do. So the final challenge for next week, Wero Ono is going to be sharing with Sketchfab and the internet. So once we've created these digital creations, outputs, as we've been talking about over the last 6 weeks, once you've created these things, like what do you do with them? A lot of the problem with digital creation is that the outputs end up being really intangible. So it can be hard to find an authentic reason why you would be creating in that medium. It's pretty good for planning and exploration, but is there something concrete at the end of it to be able to share? And I'm going to be sharing some ideas that I have about where you can valuably share digital outputs. Sketchfab is fantastic. I highly recommend checking that out ahead of next week if you can. Obviously, storing, sharing, retrieving digital files is all the basis of Progress Outcome 1 in the designing and developing digital outcomes part of the technologies curriculum. All right, it is tutu time. It's up to you now to have a go. Jesse should be sticking the feedback form link in the chat. If you haven't already done that, we would love to have your feedback. Feedback's really important. We want to know how this has gone for you, if there's anything we can do to improve for next time. So please get in touch, let us know. And if there are no questions, so we can take your questions in the chat if you want to write them in. Otherwise, we can close with a karakia. and I will let you get on with the rest of your Wednesday. All right. Karakia whakamutunga. Tēnei te Māori ka heki iho ki te whenua e tākoto nei, he rangi ātua, he rangi tīpua, he rangi tāwhito. I whiti ko te mātauranga, i tau ko te māramatanga. Tēnei ka hekitia kia wātea, haumie, hui e, tai ki e. Mā te wā.